Okay, how are you there? Before we call it a night, we need to speak about something and understand something about how the global politics works. Okay, there is a Washington, a polar. Then you will have an Eastern Bloc polar, which is led by Russia. And then we have another one that's not clear what it is, which is led by China. China is an economic polar base. Russia is a political polar base, but the United States and Europe is both political and economic base. All countries of the world need to choose between Washington or Moscow. And I'll tell you something. There's only one king, and that king is Washington. What Moscow represents, it represents a rebellion on a global scale. You see, every country, okay, not every country, some countries have got what we call rebels. There is the government, and then you have rebels. Sometimes they fight, government forces fighting against rebel forces. Russia represents a rebel nation within the context of the global political landscape. Countries like China are not exactly rebels, you see, because China is on the Washington axis. It's not on the Russian axis. China and Russia may appear to be friends, but they actually rub each other badly sometimes. It's just that these days, because China and America are fighting on the economic front, it might appear that China is friends with Russia. That is why China is very silent on the Russia-Ukraine war, because China doesn't want to look like it's on Russia's side, because it knows that Washington will kick it out of the Western system that makes money. People like Robert Mugabe were extremely ill-informed by going looking to the east with his look east policy of looking to China instead of USA. China itself is looking at USA. You can understand? So it is foolishness, propaganda, and also, if it's not propaganda, it's lack of education in our political elite. They are political elite, but they are dumb. Okay, they're dumb. Because you must understand, if you study economics, study international finance and trade, and how the system works, you would discover that the whole system, there's only one global system. Okay, it works in these centers of power: Washington, London, New York, Brussels, Switzerland, and all countries that function properly under that system of governance. Even the European Union itself subjects itself to the International Bank of Settlement, to the SWIFT system, okay, to the Washington Center of Power. That is why there is NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which comprises of United States and the European countries. And we have been seeing that countries that are former Soviet nations, the former Soviet nations, you can actually call them former rebels that are actually now turning a new leaf and joining NATO. And the real rebel, which is Russia, which is Putin, he is still fighting to keep his rebellious side. You see, what Putin has is military strength that he finances because of the oil and gas and other natural resources that they have in Russia. That is all. Chop off the gas and oil from Russia, chop off the natural resources in Russia, they've got nothing else. But however, in the Western world, look at Europe. Most European countries do not have much extractive resources to talk of, but they are rich. Germany is a very big powerhouse in the economy, but it doesn't have a mining industry, and I said it doesn't have extractive resources. See, the thing about the extractive sector is this: the country doesn't have to develop anything; it just needs to mine things and sell it, get money. Rebel nations mine things, get money, build armies that fight the global system through which it actually depends upon. Russia itself depends upon the global system of SWIFT, International Bank of Settlement, United Nations, all led by the Western government, all led by Washington. So do not be fooled when these people are propagandizing you. Russia itself depends on USA. Okay, China fully depends on USA. That's why China is quiet and not taking Russia's side explicitly, because China knows once China takes the side of Russia and the United States cuts its ties with China, China will be left in the dry and their gunpowder will be gone. Every country feels from Washington, and Zimbabwe is not an exception. For you Zimbabweans to think that being pro-Washington or pro-USA is propaganda, hey, these Western agents, that is stupidity. It's a policy that ZANU-PF pushes. It's a stupid policy. It's self-defeatist. You cannot say you want to look east to China. China's going to help you. Who is China? Does China have SWIFT? Yeah? Does China have an IMF equivalent or World Bank? Does China have its own United Nations? Yeah? Nothing. All of those institutions are run by Washington, and China depends on them. China, see, when you are Harare and you go to China and you say, we have left you Washington, now we are friends with China. Does China not tell you that itself, China, does it not tell you that itself, it is dependent on Washington? Oh, foolish Hararians, who has bewitched you? I'm quoting Paul now. He said, foolish Galatians. Now I'm turning it over. Oh, foolish Hararians in ZANU-PF, who has bewitched you to think that China is going to save you? China itself needs salvation from Washington. Therefore, pull up your sources and get your act together. I'm taking the country to Washington for that reason. Otherwise, we're going to stumble and suffer generations to come. For Zimbabwe to be free, we need to be friends with Washington, because all countries whose economies work are in line with the free world, with the global economic system. We Zimbabweans are not, because Robert Mugabe took us out of it. If you take a look at the nations that are not in the Washington sphere of influence, they all are led by despots, rogue agents who don't even like their own people who do not respect human rights, people that want to steal from their own people without facing any judgment whatsoever. They break off the global system. When United States poses sanctions upon them, they crow foul, but they never really do reforms that have got to do with rebuilding their nations with the people's interests at heart. Then, because they see that they are left in the cold, they come up with stupid ideas like look east policy. Nonsense. What east? There's no east. There is no look China policy. China itself is looking to Washington. Tell me, you people, or you proponents of look east policy, tell me right now, right in the comment section, you proponents of look east policy, look Russia policy. What are you going to get from Russia? What are you going to get from China? Because no country is aligned with Russia and China alone. All countries that are aligned with China, countries that have good relationship with China, they have got first with a good relationship with Washington. And every nation that has got a terrible relationship with Washington is destroyed. All of them, not even one is succeeded. Not even one is succeeded. Russia itself is dependent on Washington. If Washington is pulling, is sanctioning it, it gets dry. Goes nowhere. That is why the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was exploded, so that we can take off the capacity of Russia from using its oil as a leverage against the free world. That was kudos to NATO for letting that happen. Why? Because strategically speaking, rogue agents like Russia should not have control over the strategic resources of the free world. Because if we were to depend upon them, we will be sponsoring their oligarchy and if it spreads to countries like Africa, actually it has spread. That is why Africa is suffering, because most African leaders that are looking to Russia or are actually rebels to the global system themselves. They actually do not care about their own people. They want to steal, kill, and destroy. You understand? If you look at African leaders, all leaders that love their people are pro-Western. All leaders that steal from their people are anti-American. You can just take a look. Just take a look. And leaders that are confused, like here in South Africa, they are confused. They are in the middle because they are confused between the rule of law that is in South Africa and also on the other side, the corruption that the ANC loves. All corrupt people are pro-Russian. All people who love their citizens are pro-Washington. Hence, it is important for us to take Zimbabwe to look towards Washington. Let us get back to our senses. Let us use our senses. Let us have leadership that uses its senses. That's why we need to dethrone ZANU-PF. And you must be very careful what I mean by ZANU-PF. The military is not ZANU-PF. The police is not ZANU-PF. The CIO is not ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is Emerson Mnangagwa and his ministers and his MP who won elections through beating up people so that they vote for them. The military must stop supporting ZANU-PF. The CIO must stop supporting ZANU-PF. The police must stop beating up Zimbabweans and support progressives who really want to take Zimbabwe out of the doldrums of poverty and usher us into an era of prosperity that will uplift not only this country, not only our country, but also lead the way forward for the upliftment of the rest of Africa as we come back to our senses to see that the real economic growth is going to come from being friends with Washington, from pivoting to Washington, and not becoming egocentric people who are anti-US for nothing. You need to smell the coffee and wake up, people. The propaganda of those that let you lie to you and tell you that America is evil. In any case, if you want to go to a country and look for wrong things that a country has done, you will find them. America is no saint. Of course, nobody is. Put up your hands if you have never sinned. Everyone has sinned. But here's the thing. Here's the nutshell. At the bottom line, this is my conclusion. This is my judgment. The system that works is capitalism. That is rule-based system of governance and system of conducting business that will unlock direct foreign investments that would lift any country, at the same time unlocking the potential of its own citizens. You see, being pro-Western does not mean that you are a Western puppet so that you are becoming an extension of America. Not at all. You are still a sovereign nation that recognizes that you are not an island. For a man, is not an island, and even countries are not an island. Countries exist within the context or framework of the global structure. As I told you, that the global structure has got a center in Washington. Anything that is separating itself from Washington is committing suicide. And Robert Mugabe took Zimbabwe on a suicide mission in the early 2000s, and even up to now was still wallowing in poverty and asking for sanctions to end. Yet really what must end is ZANU-PF's hegemony over the livelihood and power in Zimbabwe. They are clueless, good for nothing, salt that has lost its flavor and must be chucked out, and a fresh government with fresh minds, with fresh ideas, whose minds are proper to take us back to the global infrastructure, which is mending relations with Washington. And when we do that, the first thing that Washington policymakers must do is to help the Zimbabwe military. We need to strengthen the Zimbabwean military because it is the only military, as I can see, in this region that has got the capability, if well equipped, to bring regional peace and development and to fend off the threat of the rogue Russian state infiltration into Africa. As I've been saying, that Russia is infiltrated the Sahel region and they are in Mozambique, and it's only a matter of time before they come to Zimbabwe to take its strategic resources and also come to South Africa as well. In that kind of scenario, there will be no peace in the world and the world will be in mayhem. So the Washington policymakers right now need to be extremely careful in how they approach this issue by making sure that they find strong partners that are fully invested in the system that works, that are fully invested in making their own countries work, because it is leaders with a good heart that intend to make their economies work that will actually take their countries to the one global order led by Washington to fend off these rogue states of Russia that is trying to rot the rest of Africa. So Africa was not gonna rot on our watch, and Zimbabwe is not gonna stay in this state of decay on our watch too. This generation is a generation that is going to make a change, and a change is imminent. Can you not hear the wind of change coming? I can hear it, and I am responding accordingly. So should you. My name is Ngobani Zondo. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and rethink your political ideology. Move away from East and go back to the West, because that is where the center of power is. Good night.